Hi, it's Cameron Reynolds. Welcome to tonight's live chat. We have people from all over the United States and a few people like Ian Stepler from out of the United States. You know, close enough though. Hope everything's going well for you. Your bees are looking good. Unfortunately, there are those who may be in this audience who are suffering from the hurricane damage. And I would just want to say thank you to organizations like Hives for Heroes and all the people out there individually who are really tackling all of these damages, not just with helping beekeepers out, but also helping folks who have lost their homes. Some of them have lost families. One of the worst things I've heard in a while in beekeeping was a family of four in North Carolina that unfortunately lost their lives during the flooding. And it's really stinks. And it just goes to show that everything can change in a moment's notice, and it's always good to be thankful. Also, thanks everyone for asking about myself, Bob Benny, Greg Rogers, and other people. I've had so many people contact me. We actually didn't get much rain at all. You go where my wife was raised, and they had just tons of rain, 27 million gallons per minute going through that dam over there. And there's just a lot of men and women who are working hard. So our prayers and thoughts are with those people. And thank you for everyone being concerned. Bob's doing good. Greg's doing good. So there we go. Yep, your Canadian neighbor. Hope things are good up there and the bees are getting tucked away well. Good to see so many of you here tonight. Bring your questions, Expo questions, bee questions. My bees are hungry. We've had so much drought this year. We started the year dry, then we had a super wet May, then we had a very dry summer. And even though we had all this hurricane weather, it really stayed further east, and we are still in a significant drought. And our bees, just the ones that are getting fed good, they look well, but not as good as they look when the years are a little bit more generous. So beekeepers, get out there, check your bees, feed them. There are emergency feeds that you can use in wintertime, but none of them work as good as getting those bees something earlier in fall and letting them cure it the way they want to cure it and put it in the combs that they want, the way they want to put it in there. So lots of action going on with the Bee Expo. Lots of action going on in the world of bees. Watching a pile of logs burn in Cayman Reynolds doesn't get much better. Well, thank you very much. And I love so much a wood stove. We have one in our basement. It is an awesome dealio. When we lost power for 5.5 days or so, I think it was 2 winters ago, we just cooked on it. We never got cold, and it was great. I felt like Ian Stepler. We just didn't have any wind. That's all we were missing, and no winter shed. We had plenty of snow though. But I love a wood stove. I just got back from Florida, thankfully, right before the last hurricane went through. And I wanted to say thanks to the Florida State Beekeepers Association. Every time I go to these things, it's so much fun because I get to meet the movers and shakers in each region, the people who are active and give a lot of their time to the world of beekeeping. And Tina and her husband and people like Paula and Eric, they give so much to these organizations and volunteer so much time. And it was a fun meeting. I got to talk to Jamie Ellis with the University of Florida for the first time, and that was really cool. Dr. Cameron Jack was there. Amy Vu, I'm not sure if I got her last name right, but I got to meet those folks. The people at Florida are really cool, and absolutely loved getting to do that. So, got to give a little bit of lectures on my end. Got to play some bluegrass. It was fun. But let's take your questions. Let's talk about a few odds and ends and get her going. So Nathan says that he checked today. Even the bigger hives were light, so had to start feeding. That is the same thing that we're seeing, and it's crazy. My bees have just lost weight over the last 2 months. It's just been nothing but losing weight. I do have some of my better bee yards here in Tennessee that are closer to rivers that seem to perform better for me, but they didn't gain much weight. I mean, we're talking 15 pounds, maybe on average, 12 to 15 pounds, which, I mean, hey, I'm thankful for that, but that's not enough to overwinter them, and they're burning through it. Paula's on right now. So Just awesome people in the bee industry, just as usual. And a lot of you guys are here, so thank you guys. Brian Bennett has a question. Do you pull your frame feeders in your hive or do you overwinter them? So I typically just leave them in. Now, one thing that I've noticed is sometimes you get some condensation in them whenever you have a really small colony and a double deep. I've noticed in my bigger colonies, this doesn't seem to be an issue. And we are pretty humid here in Tennessee. We get a lot of mud for our Christmas weather. I hope we get a lot of mud this year. We need some rain. I need some rain bad, but I just leave them in there. It's really convenient for me just to do that. Chris, all this Buckeye nonsense, it'll
Sorry,
come,
I don't know how that got up there. Here's the I got the next question for you from Jeff.
right? Is Hive Alive fondant good for overwintering on top of two deeps? So I've used it before. It's a good product if you are really desperate for some emergency feeding. It works a lot faster than a sugar brick. Now it's a lot more expensive than a sugar brick too, but it works really good. Fondant is a great product for the bees. It just really needs to be in contact with them. I actually have some Hive Alive syrup that there's a little area you can just kind of poke holes, just lay this on top, poke some holes, let them get on top of the bag, and they'll take this down too. This is supposed to be good for winter feeding as well. Again, personally, I would prefer to start hitting them now, but fondant does work really good. And also, oh, goodness, I was at one of the meetings and I received this. If I can get it out of here. Ah. And it is a big block of fondant from Strong Microbials. And Hive Alive and this fondant will both work really good. I mean, fondant is pretty basic stuff, but it works quite well. I'm really concerned with some of the recipes that I see online that are homemade that have all kinds of mineral ingredients. Down here in Tennessee and in Georgia, places like that, you can get away with almost anything as long as it's not toxic. But so many times I see this stuff and I'm like, man, someone who's overwintering bees and those bees can't break cluster for 3 to 4 months, they could literally have some serious gut related issues because of all these additives. So you really want a fondant that doesn't have a lot of roughage in it, in my opinion. So Hive Alive works good for that, or just straight up fondant if you can just find it locally. And thanks to the fellas in here who are part of our membership. Laurel and I have been working on a chat group, but just a text-based chat group. We've about got that running, and you'll be able to just communicate. Send us some texts, and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. It'll be a lot easier to see those throughout the week. For anyone who's wondering, the memberships, we do have those available. And just thank you. We had people ask, but we're still going to provide our videos the same way that we always have. And our live chats will be open to all. But if you see the folks in there with the little egg icons, they're eggs for now, but they should be larvae pretty soon. And every month or so, they change icons. It's pretty neat. So Jonathan Stevens is contributing to the frame feeder question. He leaves his frame feeders in over his winter. I haven't had any issues, so I just leave them in. I like frame feeders. They're terrible when you're trying to feed a colony in cold weather, though. A bucket feeder is way superior, or a jar feeder is way superior. As long as that is close to the cluster, that works way better on getting them to accept food in cooler weather. I don't like using a frame feeder if it's cold. But if the colony is really strong and able to keep the cavity warm, especially if it's an insulated hive and they're very strong, they'll take frame feeder syrup down on a day when it's like 40 something degrees, but it takes a really strong hive. So it really just depends on how strong the colony is. Strong bees are so tough, it's not even funny. All right. Newfoundland, Canada. Sweet. Chris, another question.
Yeah, we got one here from Beckham. I did. Jonathan Stevens also commented about a class, but we'll get back to that one a little bit
Okay,
later.
we'll
So
get to that
I didn't.
here
We're
in
not
just a
forgetting you,
second.
Jonathan. We'll address that here a little bit.
So I'm a second-year beekeeper, lost 2 hives already this year from robbing. I'm about to lose 2 more from robbing. I closed the front entrance to half an inch and it's still happening. Please help. Sorry this is happening to you. It is something that a lot of early beekeepers go through. And I still have a couple hives I lose from robbing. It is very difficult, especially in years that are very poor. And I don't know where you're at exactly, but in Tennessee, this has been a terrible year for robbing. We've had such poor rainfall. Our fall flow was very non-existent for the majority of that time. So we basically have been in a dearth since the second week of June here. So that's rough on the bees. It's a long period of robbing stress. You've got to keep them strong. That's the best thing that you can do against small hive beetles, wax moths, robbing from other bees, yellow jackets, anything is keeping a strong colony. And this, a lot of times, the robbing is not, it's not just the robbing. There's some other factors going on. Why are the colonies susceptible to that? Why are they weak enough? Because you either have really powerful colonies that are typically doing the robbing, or you have weak colonies that are getting robbed. So try to keep your colonies as equal as possible, and that can be difficult. And if possible, when making splits, move them to a different yard. I know it's not very feasible for some people, especially newer beekeepers. But when we make our splits, we move them to a different yard so that they're all the same size, and the big boys are left to themselves, so they can compete, and also reduce the entrance. That helps to a degree, but keeping the colony strong is the best thing that you can do. And it takes a great queen, dead mites, and good nutrition. This year, I've just spent so much time on Varroa numbers, and every year I put a little bit more effort into it, but I've spent a lot of time with it. I want to talk about this for a second. We will get into more questions here just shortly and Expo questions. But if you have a strong double deep, I mean, it's just packed with bees. That's about 40,000 bees. So if you have a 1% mite infestation, that's 400 mites. That's not a lot of mites to bee ratio. And when we are doing that experimental yard, and that's something we want to get back to, as I hope to have a lot of help this coming year in multiple ways. And we'll talk about that more in the future. A 1% infestation doesn't, in my experience, ever show visibly to the beekeeper. I can see, I believe, several things that a lot of new beekeepers don't pick up. I know I didn't pick it up in my first few years. I mean, even stuff in my 10th year, I'm able to see now on just little imperfections on how the bees cap the brood, how shiny the bees are, just certain little details that add up to understanding there's issues. But these are things that only experience teaches you. There's no amount of YouTube videos that's going to help with this. When you have a 1% mite infestation on a big colony or a healthy colony, you just don't see it. And 1% is not that big of a deal, but that's when we need to be treating. And we've got this terrible mentality, especially in this region. I don't know if it's this way everywhere, but especially around Tennessee, because some of the literature is so far behind. We wait till August to do our first treatment many times. And this is just a terrible idea. Packages, out of the 52 packages we tested in that yard, not a single one of them made it to the second week of August and had under a 1% mite infestation. They averaged almost 1.75%, going from a package in April to a good established double deep that looked beautiful, strong and healthy, good brood patterns in August. And so those are packages. Now, what about us who are overwintering bees in mild areas like Tennessee and Alabama and places in the South? We can overwinter a decent mite population with a good sized cluster. And the bigger the population, the more healthy bees there are, the more that they can withstand before succumbing to a collapse. And so, what if we're overwintering a decent population of mites? 100 mites. They're doubling every 21 days. So, we've got to get past this idea that we need to wait till it's a critical situation. Many of us are waiting till the mites are 2% or greater. And we expect because we're kind of falsely told that most of these products are going to give us 98% kill rates. And in my personal tests, in and out of the experimental yard, none of them average over 90%. Most of the time, it's in the 80 percentile range. So if we're expecting this one treatment to fix our entire season, it could be very much wishful thinking. I think I've know that I've experienced that. I think many of you are experiencing that as well. And this is the reason we're losing a lot of our bees. They're getting weak and they're succumbing to robbing stress, other problems as well. And so I really want folks to, personally, my opinion, stop waiting so long. Start hitting them early. Killing 100 mites in April is killing like 1,000 mites in August or September. It really stacks up fast on you. And if we can just get it to where we're not having to rely on this one treatment to keep us from the brink of collapse. There's a lot of little things that are happening in our hives that we don't see that are going on. And then whenever we do a treatment, it compounds because the bees are kind of feeling a lot of pressure. We just can't visibly see it. Then we hit them with the thiamol or a formic, and that really makes the situation worse and compounds the stress. But let's tackle these mites before they ever become a problem. And we're having so much more success when we do that. It's not even funny. And the guys that I know who are having great success are starting early in the season. This year, I did a lot of oxalic acid extended release starting in spring before I even put the honey supers on. It was fantastic. It didn't crush my mites, but it didn't allow them to grow out of control. And so then when I'm coming through with my Apiguard thiamol, I don't have to do the full dose because it's hot. And I don't want to slow my colonies down so much. So I did lighter dosages of it. And I could afford to not have to do the full treatment. Same thing with the formic. On some of the colonies, even because I didn't want to use the 2-dose, I just used 1 dose of formic, 1 pad between a strong double, and it worked really good. So a lot of these problems, small hive beetles, all this stuff, Varroa mites lead us to these other things being able to cause problems. So I'm going to get off of my soapbox here. I really want people to start early and then enjoy the success that they're going to have with their bees because they're going to perform so much better for everyone. All right, let's get back to some other questions. Oh, thank you so much for that, and keep bringing the questions. Let's take this question from Mike, a Minnesota beekeeper. Have you ever had to use terramycin? There may have been a case or two that I could have used it. I chose not to ever go that route. By the time I really started getting serious about Varroa treatments and just stuff in general, I knew multiple guys who were good about keeping European foul brood, chalk brood, and other smaller diseases down without terramycin. And so I was getting some really high quality bees from a couple guys. One of them was Michael Palmer. And I was also raising my own queens, and we just don't have issues with that anymore. Well, if we have some really stressful events in spring, some big drops in pollen production, it's a big colony, and all of a sudden the nutrition goes down, we'll get some European foul brood that'll crop up, but the bees clean it up and fix themselves. And since we raise our own queens, it really helps when you raise your own queens because obviously you only select from the ones that are excellent. And so it weeds a lot of that stuff out. And my personal opinion is Varroa has actually made our bees better against stuff like European foul brood and these things because it puts so much pressure on the bees. So I've never used it. I don't plan to use it. And genetics seem to do a really good job for me. Genetics like Corey Stevens that I've brought in as well, very hygienic bees. They keep things very clean.
We have a couple questions around the robbing still. So to loop back to that, here's one from Wolf.
Just had one of my hives robbed out. What do you do with the robbed frames? Very little comb left. So if there's even just a 30 seconds of an inch of drawn comb on those foundations, the bees will draw that out and use it next year extremely well. So sometimes during the robbing, of course, things get pretty damaged. But if there's even just a shred of wax on those plastic cells, they will reuse it, no problem. Store it in a freezer, or put some paramoth on it. Make sure you use the proper crystals. Don't use mothballs. Some of those things are actually toxic to bees. So just be careful of that. Jennifer has a question about Michael Palmer. I have asked Michael several times to speak at the expo. It's kind of gotten to the point where I don't want to ask him again, just because I think right now he just doesn't want to do that, and so I don't want to be annoying. So I'll ask him again probably next year, but he knows he's got an open invitation at any time to our expo, and I would be more than happy to have him as a VIP and a speaker at the expo. And as far as the merch goes, we're working on that right now. We're going to have a lot more merch this year. I am in love with these performance shirts. I just wear them all the time. They're very comfortable, this brand, and I use them in the bee yard constantly, and when I go to the lake or whatever, whenever those days show up every once a year. But um, we will. Oh, will we be selling any flags? I don't know. We might try something like that. It's almost like black and white, like a pirate flag, bee pirate. But anyways, we're working on that right now. We're focused on getting the speaker schedule out. Pretty much, but I'm just waiting on one topic to have the main lectures already mapped out, and we'll have the schedule for you guys so you can start picking and choosing which ones that you want to go to. This year is going to be a little bit different. Last year I had 3 halls going. They were all just lectures, and I wasn't able to dial things in quite as much because we just really were throwing things together as best we could due to the craziness of a new venue and other exciting events going on in our lives. Whereas this year, I'm going to have 2 rooms that are just solid lectures, great topics. We had a lot of unique things this year, but the third room is going to be a little bit different than we've ever done before. It's going to be more subtopics of beekeeping, creamed honey. There's going to be candle making. There's going to be Q&As over there that are very specific. We'll probably bring 2 or 3 experts in a given topic and have them talk, and people will be able to ask questions, and we just want to have a more interactive, more unique conversations than just splitting bees and Varroa mites and stuff. Or if we're going to talk about those things, a very interactive Q&A session. So I'm very excited about that third room this year, and we'll have the schedule for everybody on the other 2 rooms possibly by the end of this week. And definitely be sure to check the website out. We're constantly updating it. In the hotels and travel, we just updated our shuttle guy, who was awesome last year. He's providing a short tour for anyone who wants to see some of the things to do around Louisville. We've got that. Our silent auction's already up, and we really appreciate all of the people who do that. There's a form for that. Any companies, anybody who wants to be a part of that, that goes to our youth program. Our youth program has grown by like 30% this year, and it's a crazy awesome group of young men and women. So I appreciate everyone who's doing that. And we have so many cool things for them this year. I have universities. Anyone who's talking to people at a university, whether that's Florida, Cornell, I've talked to them myself. Not all of them, but several of them. And we are giving free booth spaces to any of these universities so that they can be there and we can talk to them and have a good connection with the researchers at the event. We want it to be really just a entire representation of the industry. We have more commercial beekeepers than ever coming. We have more researchers coming, and we just want the whole thing so we can communicate and build these important relationships. And the universities definitely do a lot of good things for us. So I've got the University of Georgia coming. Florida's talking about it. Anyone who knows a university who may be interested in having a free booth space, have them contact me at caymansbees@gmail.com. And oh, by the way, People have been asking about the vendor deals. Chris has been updating the website. If you go through the vendor list in the trade show section of the website, you'll see underneath some of the vendors, there'll be trade 2025 trade show deals. Some of this stuff is like 30% off. Then you add shipping on top of that, taken off of there. It's a pretty big bit of savings. So if you're not coming and someone's coming that you know of and they have room, you know, there's a reason why they're your bee buddy, and it's time for them to pay up for that relationship and have them haul stuff back from the Bee Expo and save you some coin. So you don't have to be at the Bee Expo to pre-order this stuff as long as you can get somebody to haul it back for you. Or send a representative from your bee club. Make your bee club do something useful. All right. Uh, let's get to some questions, Chris. Hey, Brian. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you very much.
Where we last left off. Now, remember, you have to refocus your camera once you step off your soapbox. There you go. Okay, another question going back to robbing from Ray.
Hey, Ray, what do you think of when in the field at an outyard and robbing starts beyond reducing the entrance? When a colony's getting robbed hard, I mean, it's just the end. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, if it's already getting just nuked, you can put a wet sheet over it. You definitely don't want to overheat it. That's one of the dangers of reducing an entrance, especially if you're in the deep south. Okay, we've reduced the entrance tremendously, but it's a double deep hive and it's got a little bitty entrance and it's a 102-degree day. The bees will abscond if it gets too hot in there, so they've got to be able to ventilate as well. So it's really a tight line, a fine line right there. So we want a strong colony first and foremost. But if I see a colony that's weak and it's getting bludgeoned by multiple colonies, it's over. At that point, to me, unless I have a flow up and coming, which I don't, once my spring flow is over, the time for building bees up is pretty much over. Some people, like the fellows I was talking to down in Florida, I actually did some inspections while I was down there. They had some nectar coming in October. Beautiful pollens coming in. So it just depends on where you live and why. So it's a lot easier to keep bees in some locations, but most of us don't live in the top 1% of bee habitat like they have in Florida and parts of Louisiana and Georgia. And even in those areas, you have a hurricane come through and that year's terrible. So in my area, though, if my bees are getting robbed out or even beat up partially in October, July, August, September, it's over. Those colonies are, if there's anything left, I can't build those bees up hardly unless the fall flow is just absolutely perfect. And typically those colonies are still so far behind on the momentum they need to push through to be successful. So the whole goal is to never get them in a position where they ever could be robbed. Let's not split our bees so weak late in the year that's an opportunity. And let's do our best to never let them be queenless so long or have any issues that are going to drop them to that threshold. Because some of us just don't have a season where we can afford to do that. And so a lot of preventative maintenance has to be done throughout the season. And that's just all there is to it. That's my personal experience. But yeah, if I see a colony getting robbed out, if there's anything, you can put a wet sheet over it. You can reduce the entrance. But the next thing I'm doing is combining that with another colony, and I'm just preserving that comb. And that's all there is to it. Where are we at? Where are we at, Chris?
All right, we have a question here from the Homesteading Avenger.
Have you heard about Vera by Terra Vera? I saw their crowdfunding and was curious, and your thoughts. I've actually talked to them. They're coming to my Bee Expo, and it's very preliminary. And after 23 years of beekeeping, I want every company who's creating a Varroa product to be ultra successful in every way. But it starts with having a product that works well for beekeepers and is good and healthy for honeybees and our combs and everything. So this product looks very promising from a natural standpoint of no unsafe residues in our beeswax and our honey. Super exciting. How that success translates out into the field, we don't know. And I'm really disappointed with the way some of these companies approach things. And they may not like this video, but Life's tough. This Varroa product, I really think they did a poor job in overselling its capabilities, and it very well may perform as good as they say. But historically, none of the products perform on average as good as what they say that they will. And when you set the bar so high on a product, I think it's a bad way to start it out. Realistic expectations. I think the Vera has a couple challenges as well, but ultimately we won't know until it's being put to use. So very optimistic. I love talking to Carlos and the team. I want this to be super successful, just like I want Varroa to be successful, and this other product, Naroa by Bio Green Light Sciences. I never can get that name right. It is very similar to this, where you feed pouches of RNAi, and it doesn't affect the bees, but the bees drink the syrup. It goes in, and as the bees, yeah, that stuff is dollars too. All the stuff is dollars, but some of it more than others. And as the Varroa mites feed on the bees, it's supposed to shut them down and not be able to successfully reproduce as well, which is fantastic. The problem is there's a price point there, and I think if it works really good, maybe the price point for the smaller beekeeper makes sense. It's going to be very difficult for the commercial beekeeper who $25 a hive times 1,000 colonies is $25,000. And obviously, for any of us, I mean, it adds up. I'm not saying that hobbyists don't feel it either, but commercial guys are not even getting $250 a pound for honey. It's a different game. So I'm excited to see all of the new things coming in. Competition is exactly what we need. There's a gentleman I was talking to earlier this week who's developing a product that I think will be awesome. I cannot tell you what it is. I'm so excited about it, but it's probably 2 years out. This is exciting, but we're just going to have to wait and I think be realistic. And honestly, I think that we need to look at it like, okay, I'm going to start early in the season with this before the mites are even remotely detectable. They're in there, but they're not detectable. And I'm going to put my honey supers on, have those strips in, keep the mites low, pull my honey supers on, maybe do a light treatment if I need to. Always keep them low. And boy, the bees just perform so well. So well. So, oh well. We'll get there one of these days. And maybe a combination of multiple things. All the successful guys are doing a combination of multiple things. Maybe some better bees, dialed in treatments, maybe some splits with using these products so that the products are more effective because you have a slight brood break. That's what I'm talking about. Putting strips like this in during a split. Oh, yeah. All right. Next question on. Hey, Dave. Thanks again, man. Seems like you smashed the other guys. Not seeing much on the on the net. I've heard, I appreciate that, but I don't. I didn't even have to do anything. Okay, some people are already successful at doing it all by themselves. They don't even need my help. I didn't even have to light a match. I just had to sit back and watch it. And so, but I appreciate everything, guys. And there's some good things going on the back end on that. There'll be more information coming soon. These legal things are so ridiculous. It takes so long to be able to do anything. It's always wise. I hope none of you ever experience this, but if you ever get into a legal situation, just shut up. Let the lawyers do their thing. One, bashing people on the internet and mudslinging never does any good, and usually just brings you down to a certain level. And it was very difficult, but we held fast to that, and it definitely was just smart and just the right thing to do. So we're too busy focused on making sure that the beekeeping industry is getting taken care of. And I appreciate you guys supporting us because we're able to do a lot of things because of everyone's support. And we're just chugging along, doing the best we can, just like anybody else. But yeah, it was an interesting ride. Interesting ride. Absolutely.
All right, we have a question here from Paul about horizontal hives.
Any pros and cons that you care to mention surrounding your horizontal hive experiences? Obviously, some pros to it are the back savings and also the way that you can access things very easily. Let's say I always hemmed the brood nest all to the left side, and so I never had to pull off honey supers. I never had to go through any extra frames. I had multiple inner covers, 3 of them to be exact, and I would just open the one I needed to get to what I wanted to see, and I didn't have to disturb the rest of the bees, so I think they're less disruptive. Um, so that's a pro. It's easier on your back. I think they're really cool, and personally, I found it quite fun, and if you can build your own equipment, even more fun. Now, one of the cons is if I'm running a bunch of hives and I want to be able to take my supers off quickly, let's say with a fume board, or I want to just, throw supers on or stack things. And it's just, there's some things that are slower because of this, but that's okay. I think these are mostly for people who are running 20 hives or less. And for anyone running 20 hives or less, I think they're a great option. And some people may find merits with them beyond that number. But primarily it's they're harder to move and they're harder to pull combs out because I just got to pull one at a time. I can't pull a whole super off at a time, but that's kind of the point. I think a lot more people would enjoy these things, and I like them for the fact that you're using a standard frame still, a deep frame, and in that way that if you get a honey extractor, it's super easy to buy a standard honey extractor. It's easy to get good equipment. So I really think horizontal regular frame hives like that are absolutely fantastic. The lay-ins are cool, but there's just so many issues with resale value and extractors and various things like that, and also just how heavy the combs are and awkward they are. Not bashing those folks. We're going to have a gentleman who's going to give lectures on lay-ins, AZ hives, and these style of hives who deals with these way more than I do. But they're very cool. The main thing with them is you've got to manipulate the combs into the center of the brood nest during the swarm season, and you need to pull the bees back. But I have to pull really strong colonies back in a normal colony as well. It's easier sometimes just to add a box of comb and pull a frame up. Whereas this one, sometimes I've got to pull some deep frames over to the edge of the brood nest to where I'm not kind of violating the brood nest space too much and putting too many combs in there and some of the broods getting chilled maybe in early spring. Usually just put it right up against the last brood frames, and so they can pull resources into those frames or the queen can lay in them and just pull a frame or two of brood. But oh man, I've produced 100 pounds out of a horizontal hive, so you can be very successful with those. It's just a few minor tweaks. So Tar Heel Beekeeper, Randy, good to see you again. Oh, hey Damon, thank you so much. I like that name. You're just one letter away from mine, so I like that a lot. Our parents must have been on a similar wavelength. I'm not sure if that's was great or not, but thanks for becoming a member of our group. And as we are getting more help, I'm just going to say it. I'm bad about this. Chris gets on to me all the time because I spoil my own stuff all the time. But Chris is going to be working for us in the future, and I'm excited about that. Chris has been helping me out for multiple years, volunteering at the expo, and I needed help. He volunteered, and he's been either smart enough to work hard or too stupid to quit. I don't know which one. Um, but he's been a tremendous amount of support, and the expo wouldn't be the same without him. And so, because we're going to have more help, we're going to be able to do a lot more things. So it's going to free up my time. We're going to have some really cool shirts and stuff available, and all the members are going to get 10% off of those. And then, of course, we're going to have a live chat for all the Honeymaker members. So thanks for joining that, Damon, and for supporting us, and more things to come. Randy, who helps us at the Bee Expo, he was right there in amongst all that flooding. I'm glad that you're doing okay. I know Asheville's pretty rough, and you've been busy cleaning up all that kind of stuff. But the hive beetle traps worked well for me, but not in every hive. And you really had to start early with them. So the traps themselves work flawlessly. Occasionally, the bees later in the season will propolize them shut, but that's where I was starting to see these mass amounts of dead beetles in them, and the bees eventually were hemming the beetles into these traps by shbtrap.com that I got. Well, let me grab one. So these traps right here, this is two put together, and the bait, they've actually got the bait instructions online. There's a kind of was a loophole for the boric acid, and that's what the original bait was. We're still not to the second generation bait, which one of our speakers will be talking about the University of Georgia's progress on getting a safe and legal small hive beetle bait that is actually, bees can eat this stuff and it's not going to kill them. It's not going to get in our wax and hurt anybody down the road. It's very targeted towards beetles. Hey, Dave Dwyer, thanks for joining us, man. You've been a big supporter of ours, and I really appreciate you. But what we're seeing a lot right now in our strong hives is they've propolised all of this up, and there'll be like 50, 60 to 80 beetles in amongst that bait. And the bees eventually, as the beetles are trying to get in there and feeding, they're hemming them in there and probably not letting them out. These are very strong colonies, and they're staying in there to die. Early on, when there was a lot of exits and entrances to this, most of the beetles were dying. If you had a tray underneath your hive, you would see them dead underneath. So that's a boric acid recipe. Since the EPA has kind of cracked down on that a little bit, EPA can't make up its own mind on what their rules are and what's actually safe or not. It's really just a matter of who's got the most money on what's safe, I think. And beekeepers are fairly poor by and large. The shbtrap.com website now has the instructions on how to make that boric acid bait yourself because they can't sell it. Once they get this University of Georgia bait available, that will probably be sold through their website, and I'm super excited about that. So again, thanks for supporting this product. A lot of times, the early stages aren't quite as good, but it really takes a group effort of people supporting these innovators and these universities to get these things from point A to point B. And you guys are the ones making it happen. And cool things happen. Cool things happen right now. But these were things that weren't happening several years ago because we just didn't have the industry working together on this stuff.
Hey, we have a bunch of conference questions if you want to do maybe like a rapid fire here. Answers under 30 seconds kind of thing. These are pretty straightforward.
30 seconds? Me? Okay. Wow. That's going to be
putting
tough.
you on the block here,
Let's try it.
Okay, here we go. Here's the first one from, well, actually here, let me scroll back up to the actual first one. I'm sorry. Here we go. Here's the one from Jonathan.
When can we buy tickets for the microscope class? Hate to hound, just don't want to be late to the party. So that is a good question. I need to get on to that. The problem of it is I've got so many like critical things right now. I'm kind of having to pick and choose which one's the most critical. The microscope class, I feel like I can put behind a little bit as we're trying to work out the trade show floor plan and also get some of the coffee buyouts. Got that locked down this week. Just multiple things with the expo and trying to get the speaker schedule up, but that should be done soon. I was hoping to have it by about right now. I think we can get that finished in about half a day or so. I just got to make that half a day happen. And thankfully, I have no more speaking engagements the rest of the year. So I'm just going to be in my office, pedaling away at this and trying to do my best. But I will let you know, Jonathan. I'll send out a member's message on that and give you a heads up on when that's going to launch. I am working with Etienne to see if there might be another person that can add, that is also extremely good at this, that can maybe do a class when he's not available to do so. Because I think we're only going to have about 60 slots to be able to do that. And it's probably going to be around $35 because we've got to pay him to fly from the Yukon, put him up, and also buy new microscopes for the class and few projectors and a computer or two and tables and various things. But um, I love it if it could be free. But this I think 35. This is going to be an incredible course. I've seen Etienne do this before. I am paying. I will be one of those. So there's only 79 slots. I will be in one of those sessions, and I will be doing this. I don't care if the conference is burning down, Chris, in another room. I'm going to a class for a change.
Noted.
That was not 30 seconds. That was about 3 minutes.
3 minutes, 30 seconds. All right. The first question. Nick has a couple questions here. We'll start with this first one.
Could you clarify the honey swap drop off times? Will that be posted somewhere? So right now, I believe we just have the details on how many jars that you can bring to the honey swap. We don't have on the website where to drop them off and what the times will be. I don't believe. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that right?
You're correct. We're at. I can, if you want me to, I can just read through these real fast. If you want to look at these, they're on the North America. Here, you want me just to share my screen real quick? I can do that.
Well, just leave a link down below so we can keep this close to 30 seconds. And anyone who wants information about that can then go and look through that link. But we will have that information. We're going to have a room, and we're going to have a sign this year. We planned on having it in the trade show, and once we got there, the problem of it is, well, like, we poll people and say, hey, how many people are going to do this? And then we don't even get 20% of the people who actually do it. So then we make these plans kind of built around about 30 to 40% of what actually showed up, and then it overwhelmed us. And so we had to move it to a different room. So this year we're prepared, and we'll have the room, the times. It'll be super organized. Same way with the honey show. I've just spent some time with the honey show judges. That's going to be super expedient for people to get through the lines, and we may have a little bit of a bonus. So let's go to Nick's next question real quick, and then we'll go to another one.
Yeah, here's Nick's next one.
Have you thought about hosting a networking area or maybe a commercial sideline networking area by area of interest? So yes, this year, likely we are going to have a commercial professional room. We have more commercial beekeepers now than ever, and it's going to be centered around industry level things. We'll also have several topics, like Blake Shook is going to be giving a lecture on how to build and sell nukes, which is a more professional topic. Obviously, in some of the other rooms, we're going to have topics that are for people who aren't interested in selling bees. And there will be another room going as well. So, but we are going to have topics like that, and we are going to have likely at least one meet and greet for those type of folks, because we do need those people to get together. And some people have expressed concerns about segregation, so to speak, with this classification of beekeeper versus this one over here. You have to do it. There's no way around it. Commercial guys are wanting to talk about different commercial level things, whether on different styles of strapping down loads of semis, various honey things that affect honey prices, almond prices, issues with getting stuff through borders, custom, just all kinds of different things. It's a totally different world. And so we need those people finding value at our conference. And we also have up and coming professional and commercial beekeepers that need to be in that room getting that information, because it is critical that we have young men and women that are becoming tomorrow's commercial beekeepers. There's a big age gap there that needs to be filled. So yes, one of the things that we're looking at. Oh, David, hey, don't worry about it, David. You have been going crazy with it for such a long time, and had to donate to the Vandy fine. Oh man, that's pretty low blow, man. The background caller. Oh, I see. Okay, I got you. I appreciate you, David. Go Vols.
Just so you understand, those are 3 separate $20 donations.
Well, I was just reading the first one, and it threw me for a loop. David, appreciate it. I saw that message about that young girl who's looking to get into the youth program. We might be able to do something for her this year. We did fill up everything, but that doesn't mean we can't do something on the side. We like to be personable and flexible so that we can pivot at any moment to make sure that we're doing as many awesome things as we can. And kids coming to the, especially teenagers that are interested coming to the expo are pretty high on the list. So thank you, David, so much. Thanks for being a member and supporting us so much, and especially our youth program. Now, Mr. Kamen, it was super nice to meet you in Ocala at the Florida State Beekeepers Association. Hope you had safe travels back home. Thank you, sir. I totally did have safe travels back. Typically, when I go from Florida to here, it's great. Whenever I go out west and I have to stop in Dallas, delayed flights. I don't know what it is with Dallas, Fort Worth. Every stinking time I've gotten stuck there with Jennifer Pretty, and we were both coming back and our flight got delayed. Somebody decided that smoking on an airplane was in fact a good idea, and the entire plane was delayed over that. But Florida's always been great for me. But it was so much fun. I had a great time. What I loved about going there and Louisiana this year is you have commercial beekeepers and guys and girls who have been there 30 or 40 years. There's a lady there who had been a commercial beekeeper for, I'm not going to say how long because you're not supposed to say how old women are. So she looked extremely young, very youthful. But I just sit and listen to her and some of these other guys, and I'm learning. And I love that because I want to be able to learn too. And so I'm learning how to strap loads differently. And I didn't realize this, but they go and do blueberry pollination. And blueberries aren't the most attractive blossoms to bees, but this to me blew my mind. What they were doing to get bees to go to the blueberry blossoms more aggressively is they're spraying over the foliage with the irrigation is a lemon-based product that's like lemongrass, and lemongrass might be part of the ingredient, but it attracts the bees to the flowers so that the bees will pollinate them more aggressively than they would naturally. And obviously the grower sees a big benefit to spraying this because better pollination equals bigger fruits. And what they were telling me is the excessive amount of pollination not only makes a sweeter fruit, but it also makes the seed size grow bigger, which makes the blueberry heavier. And the grower gets paid by the pound, not by necessarily anything else. So, I mean, if someone has a blueberry this big and it weighs half a pound, and someone has a blueberry the same size, but it's 3/4 of a pound, that's more valuable. And the seeds are quite heavy. So, it's interesting. And having more bees to the acre and using these things helps bees pollinate. I just thought that was really interesting information. But this is a totally different realm than someone with 5 hives in the backyard. So we're going to try to do that. What do you all think about this idea? That this is not for sure. We're trying to make the honey show as awesome as possible, and it's a lot of work. I'm going to probably have at least 40 judges there this year, and folks, and those guys do an excellent job. But we had 1,200 entries pretty much last year, and that's a lot of labor. You times that by 5 minutes of judging per entry. That's just 5 minutes times 1,200. That's a lot of work. So we had to bring more people in. But what about this? Typically, we open up around 12:31 p.m. on Thursday. For those doing the honey show, we've thought about having a honey enthusiast meet and greet, more of a honey show enthusiast, excuse me. And it's essentially you're going to be able, as long as you pre-register, which will help us tremendously get everyone through the lines. It'll help us prepare better. We have an online form and we are going to add more to it, but anyone who pre-registers can get in like maybe 2 hours earlier. And that way we can get your stuff checked in. You're not waiting in a long line while everyone else is in the trade show or doing whatever. And then you're able to go to a room and hang out with the other people, maybe doing creamed honey or beeswax candles or whatever it is in the honey show, and kind of hang out with each other. And we'll have our coffee vendor, Copper Canyon, and have some muffins and cookies and a hangout. And this is one to help get that stuff in, help our honey show team, but also help encourage folks to submit stuff to the honey show. because we want it to be the biggest in the world. And right now, the UK is like 2,000 and something exhibits, low 2000s. So we're a little ways behind, but this is the United States. We got to catch up. We got to do something about this. So it's just a thought. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Leave them in the comments, or after this video is over, leave them in the comments for that too. I want to hear your thoughts. All right. So here's a question. Oh, I grabbed one, Chris.
That was the next one.
Okay. See, just same wavelength, man. It's because Damon and I, so close. Cayman, as someone's first time to the expo, I had a couple questions. What's parking like for those of us that bring a trailer to get things home, staying at the plaza? So this year, the plaza is completely remodeled like it was supposed to be pretty much last year, where there was nothing supposed to be done. We won't get too much into that open wound that's slowly healing. They have a good amount of parking. Now, you can leave a trailer at the expo center, but there's no insurance. They won't have any liability for it. So if your trailer runs off, the expo's center is not responsible for that. But you can do that. The Crown Plaza does have a lot of parking. However, there's going to be a lot of people staying there who are also probably going to have big trucks or trailers. And so the Crown is great as far as, I think it's got more parking than any other hotel that we've looked at. So I think you'll do pretty well there. Now, the shuttle there, let me go ahead while I'm on this subject. We have a shuttle hired to go from the Crown Plaza to the expo. Some of the hotels, like the Crown and a few others, do have their own shuttle, but the airport is the first priority. And a lot of times these people are a lot slower than I'd like. This guy is a buddy of mine. He shuttles extremely well, and you don't pay to get in and out. So if you go and get all your gear one day and you want to use the shuttle the rest of the time, you totally can do that. So you can leave your trailer at the expo center. We're not liable. They're not liable. You're responsible for your own stuff. They do have a pretty good security system around that, but this is Louisville, so take that for what it's worth. Definitely put a lock on it, all that kind of thing. But we have tons of amazing gear, and like I said earlier, folks, Chris is uploading as we receive them all the deals. So I know Premier just launched 30% off all of their stuff. Hilco's just launched their deals. If you're wanting a wax dipping unit, Thorne's got you set. Multiple products being launched at the expo. Just talked to Better Bee yesterday, and they're bringing a ton of equipment this year. A new line that I've never seen before. It's a nice big automatic uncapping line. They're only bringing one there, so if you're interested in a nice automated line, you can save a bunch of money by getting it at the expo and all that kind of stuff. All right, next question, Chris.
Just one thing I wanted to address, because we talked about it. It was asked in the group, but just to bring it up here, some people were asking about like being dropped off, whether that's like an Uber or if you're in a wheelchair, handicap of some type. They will not, to most people's understanding, they will not let you in without paying. I'm sure there's probably workarounds. I don't know about specifically Uber and all that stuff like that, but I know for a fact if you try to get in and say, hey, I'm just dropping something off, or my mom's dropping me off, or whatever, they will not let you in. And that's not us. Yeah. That is the venue running it, and that is true for all of their events. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. That's a good point. We can't control that. And honestly, we're dealing with 3,000 odd people, and they have events that'll have 1 million people. And the problem of it is 98% or more of the people will do it the right way. The reason you have to have these dumb rules is because of the 2% that are trying to cheat and break the rules. So the shuttles, if you use a hotel shuttle, pretty much you just go right through, no payments whatsoever. Now, when you do pay, there's a couple options. There's a cheaper option that's just one way in, and then you get to come out. And I think that's around $13. If you pay like $2 more, $15, I think is what it was last year, you can go in and out that day as many times as possible. I know that's a lot. It's one of the things we hated about it, but like every big event we look at, Atlanta, North Carolina, Missouri, Nashville. They're all that way. Actually, a lot of them are more expensive than that. It's stupid, but it is what it is. That's why we started offering the video series for every attendee. So you get that. We hired the shuttle to where if you want to utilize that for part of the event or the entire event, you can avoid that expense as well. So we're doing the best we can with what we have to work with. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. Let's jump
We have.
on to.
Do you want to keep
Oh,
going on the? I mean, we have several other Expo questions.
yeah, I'm going to try to be a little faster with these. So since we already
Okay.
talked about this a little bit, I want to just finish it. When does loading need to be done by? So each day ends at like 6 p.m. So you can get your stuff on Thursday. Talking to the vendors, Thursday is usually the busiest day, and Friday is right neck and neck with people grabbing their gear. And then obviously, some people wait till Saturday to get their stuff. Anytime when the event is open, you can go around back, and the vendors are great about this, especially the ones who have worked with us for years. Hilco provides carts; those cannot go into the hallway of the event center, but they can go outside the back doors by the docks, and you can pull around back. If you get an extractor, bottling tank, whatever, it doesn't have to be just from Hilco. John's carts can be used for everyone else's products, woodenware, whatever it is, and you can take that out the back right to your vehicle, load it up. These companies typically have a lot of staff. John Hill's going to have like 30 people on staff, and a lot of these other guys will as well. And so you'll have the help that you need. A lot of it is just communication. I recommend that if you're buying a lot of stuff on pre-orders, just have a just ask them. And if you're buying something from Hilco, especially, who does a ton of volume, they're bringing like 8 to 10 semi loads this year. I heard 10 last. That's a lot of gear. They actually have to schedule there, so you may get an email from them if you're buying from them on a time frame, which is in some people are like, well, I don't want to be tied to that time frame. It's just the logistics have to be done that way. But most of the companies don't have to deal with that. John's crazy like I am. And so crazy people have to do crazy things, I suppose, but it's just you have to do it. So you will you'll just communicate with those people. Pre-orders are fantastic because it makes sure that your product is there, and it also helps the company's plan as well. Thank you guys for understanding the logistics we have to deal with. So this question real quick, APA tablets. I have used the APA tablets a little bit. They do kill some mites. Obviously, they are not sold as that because they have not gone through any research or testing here in the United States. None in Europe that I'm aware of either, because they're sold as a supplement. It kind of skirts underneath regulations, which could be a problem. So I've toyed with them a little bit and fed them as a supplement. We do see mites shed. I know Ian Stepler has used them as well. We don't know yet how effective it is. I'm seeing mites drop, but heck, if there's a high mite population, you throw some powdered sugar on the bees and you'll see a bunch of mites drop too. So there needs to be some research done on it. I don't really know. It's basically sugar and thymol and one or two other things, but it's a mite treatment, even if they say it's not. It's a very high load of thymol that the bees are ingesting, but I cannot say whether it is super effective or not, but it does kill some mites for sure. How many frames of brood would I like to see this time of the year for a production hive? So at least four. At least four. Good frames of brood. Not spotty. They don't have to be perfect frames of brood, but I'm seeing, especially in my hives that have been well fed, kept a good strong population, I'm seeing about 5 to 6 frames of brood. But anything less than 4, I'm getting concerned. This time of the year, this is Tennessee, so we're still quite warm. We're 70s and 80s. And so that's when I want to see this time of the year. The weaker colonies, if it's a nuke, it's going to be smaller than that. But if you're further up north, your bees might be getting closer to shutting down. This product we saw this kind of go semi-viral online. This girl had done a little bit of research on a thymol, and she had a website and a few other odds and ends, and We try to contact her. Other friends of mine try to contact her to really help her out and also just get this out there. Because if someone's doing good, we really want to make sure that it gets out there because many small startup companies just can't get off the ground due to lack of exposure. So we wanted to look into it, but they never reached back out. A lot of times it seems with these things that come from out of the beekeeping realm, we want to use the viral ability of people loving honeybees and saving the honeybees without actually giving something and going the distance. I know a lot of people like Paul Stamets with his mushroom stuff and all like that, but there's so many people like that, and they have this thing and they'll utilize it to get money. And I'm not saying it's all bad, but they get this notoriety, they get this fame, and all this attention, they get all this money, and then nothing ever comes of it. And so, okay, maybe mycelium is good for bees and helping out, but at the end of the day, it never makes it to your hands or my hands, and it's kind of frustrating. But that's kind of what's happened with this thymol treatment at the hive entrance. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and I think with a lot of these products, what works in a lab, it just doesn't translate out to a field. It's a very complicated problem trying to kill a bug on a bug. All right. Any speakers talking about comb honey production? So, man, I was just talking yesterday to someone about possibly giving a talk on that. Their response to that was, I could do it, but it will be pretty basic. Does anyone know someone out there who is extremely good at that? That would be great. Gus would be great if I could get him to do it. I would love to have Gus Mitchell at the expo in any capacity. Gus is awesome, but I don't think that's going to happen. That would be awesome. So I'm working on that one. We're looking to have a conversation on creamed honeys. We're also looking to have a black jar for flavored creamed honey this year. That's like the natural flavorings, the vanilla bean, cocoa powder, um, whatever you want to put in there, natural powder from frozen raspberries. I don't know, whatever you can do to make as long as it's natural flavored creamed honey, it won't be judged on anything but flavor. Probably will eliminate hot honeys out of there because I think there's already a classification for that, anyways. But I'm looking for like a black jar for creamed honey this year. That would be really cool. And we're looking at a couple other things there, but we wanted to have a conversation on creamed honeys. Every year, this becomes more and more popular for beekeepers to sell. And I've seen more machines sell each year at the expo for creamed honey. And so if this is where the general public is coming to meet us, the beekeeper, then we need to be meeting them with these unique offerings if that's where they're going to meet us at, so that we can educate them about the value of bees and ultimately make a few bucks so we can keep doing what we like to do. Now, this comment by Jake Osborne is rude, crude, and sociably unacceptable. What happened to Alabama at Vandy? All I've got to say is Nick Saban's not there anymore. I don't think these kids are as disciplined as they used to be. Nick Saban was old-fashioned, but he ran a tight ship, and the Alabama team is just so they show up one day, they don't show up the next now. I don't really follow it much. Brendan, I hope I got that name right. Thank you so much for becoming one of our YouTube members. We appreciate you. Leave your questions down below. Happy beekeeping, and we will see you in the comments. Is there a temperature that's too cold to apply OA vapor? Paul, thanks for supporting us yet again. Now, OA vapor could be effective into the 20s and 30s. I don't know, but that might be it still kills mites. But the problem is once you start getting into the 40s, the bees create such a tight cluster that the vapor struggles to permeate that cluster. So I really prefer it to be close to 50 degrees Fahrenheit before I will do oxalic acid vapor. Some people feel like you can do it lower than that. You probably can, but you definitely don't want a really tight cluster. So somewhere in the mid 40s at the lowest is my personal opinion. It's Tennessee, so I can do it Christmas Day typically, and I do it a lot around Christmas, and we just kill the mites. And for those of you who do oxalic acid vapor, take the extra time to do at least 2 rounds of oxalic acid vapor when the bees are as broodless as possible. Hopefully, completely broodless makes a big difference. Big difference. And by the way, I was talking to the gentleman that makes the instant vap. There's a new model coming out. It's going to be launched at the Expo, and it's going to be great, especially for those who are smaller beekeepers who don't want to spend as much on the bigger models. This will be a nice option. It won't be as effective as far as it'll still kill mites as good, but it won't be as quick. But it won't be like as slow as a pan vaporizer. Be super easy, quick, and user friendly. So watch for that. This is a good question right here. What is the best time of year to buy bees for the first time? So I assume you're in North America. That would be springtime. Now, springtime in Florida, you might could get bees in January and would be a great time, even December in parts of southern Florida, especially. Georgia, I know guys who are selling nukes in Georgia in early March and stuff like that. And so in my area, I can't even produce a nuke and get it out to a customer until the end of April. And if it's a cold year, the first week of May. And so it really depends on your location. You really want to make sure that you get on that early. You don't want to wait too late to get on the list. Don't order your bees any later than the end of January, in my opinion. Typically before that's better. I am going to be putting out a list very soon. We are going to be selling nukes that are ours and also selling nukes from a couple of my buddies who I've been to their operations. I've seen their bees. Laurel and I will be going through every single one of them, and we will be offering extra nukes. And so these will be exactly what you're expecting to get. Every single nuke is going to be powerful and ready to go, or we will replace it or make it right. And so anyone who's needing bees, we're going to have early bees as well. So for people who want to get ahead of the game, we're going to have some early nukes from those guys. And then anyone who wants our nukes, they're going to be later into late April, early May. And all of these are having to be raised with a queen cell, which I love. So many nukes and bees that you buy are not like that packages. When you start a nuke with a queen cell, only a great queen can build that up. You only give them about a frame of brood, a shake of bees, and a frame of food. And then you give them some feed and you put a queen cell in there. That queen's got to go out, come back, begin to lay, and then she's got to build that up, and they've got to draw new combs out as well. So you get some new combs with your nuke. And so you've got all these fresh combs, young bees, and you got a young queen. And if the queen has any issues with her, we're gonna see that on our end before it ever gets to the point of sale. And so that's, I think, the best way to buy bees. Packages have their issues because of not only queens getting banked, but also not being allowed to lay long enough. The nukes that we sell, the queens are typically going to have laid for at least a month on the low end. Not very long, but probably 4 weeks on the low end, 6 weeks. At least, and they'll never see a queen cage. There's no interruption. It's very natural. The queens are in the process of drawing combs, so when you get them, they're ready to go out the gate. So we will be selling nukes soon. There'll be pickups. I'll probably be doing not only pickups in Tennessee, but it's likely I'll be doing some in Missouri, Ohio, and maybe a couple other places as well. And especially for any of you all who have bee clubs that are wanting to get nukes, you can contact me at caymansbees@gmail.com. We'll cut you a rate and we can deliver it to you as long as you're getting a certain amount. And we'll make sure that you guys are getting high quality nukes so that you don't have to have those issues with queen loss and all those things. Let's not get on into that topic, but yeah, start early. All right. Where are we at, Chris, on questions?
Yeah, we have a question here from Jonathan.
Any word on a hive lifter? I know I have asked last time, but I always hope. I can't get these guys to show up. Someone needs to make one here in the US. One of the biggest problems with hive lifters is some of them are really nice, but they're all done in other countries. Someone needs to make a hive lifter here in the US. It's just that simple. Let's say you're wanting a big, expensive hive lifter like an Ian Stepler machine. You're going to pay so much money here in the US just for shipping because it's made in Australia. They got to get parts over there, ship it up to Canada, pay all that, those shipping and tariffs and all that kind of stuff. Then they got to get it down to the United States and you got to pay for all that again. It's expensive. Why can't we do it here in the US? And then there's the smaller lifts, which is probably what you're talking about, Jonathan. And that would be nice to have a lot of those at the conference. Someone needs to do that here in the US. If someone makes a good lifter here in the US, we will promote the heck out of it. And it'll do quite well as long as you're able to manufacture it and make a good product. I'll do a video on it. And then I'll give it back to you at the expo. I don't care. We need someone to do some lifters here because there's some good lifters, but they're mostly in Europe. And you spend half the amount of money on the shipping. And then if you need any maintenance or whatever, you can't get it done. So I'm hoping at the expo someone's going to eventually do that here in the US. And then if, let's say there was any issues, it's all able to be done here in the USA. That would be great.
All right, I got a question. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I went myself. So this is Josh Hager, Bearded Bee Works. Thoughts on oxalic acid extended release? I love it. It doesn't always work the same for everybody else. And you got to start low with this stuff. Oxalic acid extended release, that would be like this product for Roxanne right here. Some people have made their own. And I'll leave that up to you. But as far as oxalic acid extended release goes, I love it because it can be affordable in some ways, and it's very gentle on the bees. I love treatments that are gentle on the bees. Roxanne, I haven't had enough time to test it out. I put some in colonies in August, but that's really not a long enough time to test a product and be able to fully determine how good it is. And really, this product, I personally believe, I know they're marketing it as a knockback treatment. No other product in oxalic acid extended release history has ever been a hard knockdown product, which is if I got a good mite load and then I'm knocking it back. They're always a hold the line treatment, which is great because this is safe to use with honey supers on. Oxalic acid breaks into CO2, formic acid, which off gases and is very organic. There's formic acid in the hive all the time. There's oxalic acid in the hive all the time. It also breaks down into H2O. You can drown from that stuff, but other than that, it's pretty safe for you guys. So this stuff is very natural. We can put it in early in the season. And instead of coming to a 1.5% maybe when the honey supers are pulled, now we're looking at maybe 0.5% mite infestation, and our bees look better. And now we're maybe like, oh man, it's hot, but it's not as critical. I can use a light dose of thymol or something else. This stuff buys you time, and whether you make your own or use it, you just got to view this, in my opinion, as a hold the line treatment. So if you use it when they're low, it's going to keep them low. And I used this and some other products this year. Worked really good. I prefer the strips versus the sponges. One, because when I'm digging through the colony, I don't like have to scrape up the sponges, get them out of the way so I can pull frames. The sponges only work decent when you have a strong double deep because they have to be able to really walk over them a bunch. The strips that go down in between the frames, like this shows you right here, that gives you more contact where the Varroa mites are at, which is on the nurse bees. And I also like the fact that I can move frames one at a time with those strips on. It's a lot better. I also feel like I'm getting better drops over a shorter period of time. The only problem I have with these things is the cost of them. I'm a little disappointed on how much they cost. So it's to be discovered still if this product is worth the cost. I'm hoping that it is. It's going to have to perform well. But oxalic acid extended release is part of the beekeeping world's future, in my opinion, on the majority of the industry. All right. So So this is the question right here. So the workshops are going to have an extra fee? Yes. So if the workshops are going to be very intense, small classes, and we're going to have to pay a good bit extra to run these things. So that's something that we are going to charge. It's primarily to pay the person to run these things is what it's going for. We're not making any money off of those. It's actually going to take us probably 2 to 3 years, depending on the class, to break even on our end. And then once it's that point, we're just going to probably invest into the speakers more. And thankfully, we have good speakers who are willing to work with us on the price point to keep it what it is. But the microscope class is going to be 90 minutes of very intense looking at nosema spores, what type of magnification to use. I can talk about it a little bit, but honestly, the information that we'll put on the website will be way more detailed. And the artificial insemination class is going to be very detailed as well, and very much worth the money. These are very specific classes. The candle making one, it's not like we're going to do a general overview class. We're not going to charge for something like that. So if someone gets on stage and just does a lecture on general information, that's not going to be a charge. But workshops is like, we have candle molds, we actually have wicks. We're going to be doing something. We're going to be using things. We're going to get some hands-on experience here, and it's going to be a lot more intense, and that's quite a bit different. So yes, any of those types of things we will have. We also have a honey show judging class. That's actually put on by the American Honey Show Training Council guys, and there are people already taking those courses, and you have to go through so many of them to get certification, become a honey judge. So they're going to be putting that one on as well. But we'll see how many of these we get done this year. All right, Chris, I am like way behind on some of these. So hit me with the most important ones.
We have 3 right now pending. This one's for chicken for eggs.
Chickens for eggs. Which came first? Cayman, what's the best way to reach you for speaking to our local club via streaming? If you could email me at caymansbees@gmail.com. Chris, do you mind putting that below? If you don't mind, sir. Just email me there, and if I can, I will. Usually, live streaming is a lot easier for me, especially this time of the year. I can do that, and it's pretty fun. I really enjoy doing those. We'll try to do like a 45-minute presentation if that's what you want, and then leave time for a Q&A. That's always a lot of fun.
All right.
So, thank you, sir. That's perfect.
All right, Randy. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Jeremy Lindsay. He's our trade show maniac. Cayman, are you going to overwinter some bees in Wisconsin? Heck no. I took bees up there. That all I want is the good side of Wisconsin. I don't want the bad side of Wisconsin. So I'm bringing the bees back down to warm, sunny Tennessee. But I did really enjoy the nectar flows up there, and it was fun to get to explore Wisconsin. It's a beautiful state. I like it. All right.
You want me to grab the next one?
Yep. Yes, sir.
This one's from Randy. I don't know if you want to talk about this or not. You just mentioned it.
Yeah. So that new vaporizer, the Instant Vap, is not made by Lorabes, or Lorabes, I should say. I always say that wrong. So they do sell it. They are the North American distributor for that. And Rob does make his electric vaporizers. Those are made by him. And they do a lot of the maintenance and stuff on the Instant Vap. And so they do a lot with Instant Vap, don't get me wrong. But the original design and the guy who continues to innovate those machines is Janos Finyosi from Hungary. And the man is awesome, good person, and super, super exciting because he's just doing a lot of good things for the industry behind the scenes. I'm excited to see what he does next. And so the new vaporizer, while it will be sold through Lorabes at our expo, and they're going to have their biggest booth there ever with other gear besides vaporizers that they've never had before, but they are made from a gentleman and designed from an engineer in Hungary, and I've seen every component in and out of the Instant Vap original. These things are so overbuilt compared to the other vaporizers that I've seen. It's just not really close. And so I use them all the time, and they're tough. I love them.
Cool. All right, we got the resident Jacob here.
You dropped your Bee Expo hat and your syrup tank. Will there be a new design Bee Expo hats at the conference? So you already destroyed one of them, Jake. This is unacceptable. It's like a kid who claims that his dog ate his homework. This is getting old. Your dog ate your other hat. That's why I brought that up. And now you've dropped one in the syrup tank. I mean, you're like 6'4", dude. When are you going to start acting like a grown up? That's what I want to know. I'm going to pay for that comment, I think. Jake can probably throw me across the expo floor. But good news for me is I can run fast. So we'll have other types of hat designs. We're working on them right now. We just took inventory from what we have from last year. This year's collar is blue, so we're going to have some blue themes. We'll also have some other stuff as well, and we'll definitely have some. We'll have some dated stuff too. We've kept it simple in the past. We're going to have some Expo hats and shirts with the date on it and some unique stuff. So we want to make sure we have that. It'll be cool. But you're not getting anything. I mean, you're just like, might as well just throw that a pile of money on a fire or something like that. I don't know. Bob is all good. Thankfully, Bob had some tree damage. He was out of power for a while. He had to find some fuel and get his generator going. But Bob is great. I just talked to him the other day. They're prepping for the expo, selling stuff at the store. He's making me some 4-way pallets, and I'm looking forward to going to some 4-way pallets here in the future from Bob. He's going to have a lot of his stuff at the expo as well. So anyone who's going, if you want some Bob Benny stuff, it's a premium product. All right, here's a question, Chris. I'm going to take any honey straw machine vendors coming? Yes. So the Whiskey Trail Bees folks are going to be there. They have a great honey straw machine. It's a premium machine. It's made here in Tennessee. It's engineered extremely well. So I'm looking at one right over here. So I think you guys will be impressed seeing that at the expo. There's another company. They won't be there at the expo this year. They've had some logistical problems getting product to customers and seemingly struggling to do business. So that's a whole nother topic, but we'll at least have one of them there. Syrup
member
tank
here.
Hey, Red Creek Honey, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you guys. Bring the questions as you have them, and we'll take them. So, yeah, and Jennifer Apiary said blue is the color of the queen this year, too. And so this will be the 5th year Laurel and I have run a conference, and each year we have followed the queen colors. And so I am going to pick a nice looking light blue for it because a dark blue doesn't show up good on queens, and I prefer a lighter blue versus a dark blue, but we'll probably have both colors in some forms or fashion. There's a lot of little upgrades we're going to have this year. I'm kind of hoping to have like a Bee Expo that's like a PVC that's like a cool blue and white pattern, Bee Expo 2025, and we may do some other stuff. The next gen program, those kids, we're going to have some cool stuff for those young men and women, so it's going to be quite a bit of fun. Let's see. Overwinter, my bees in Wisconsin. So this question right here from Peter is about where to get the electric hive dollies. There are some guys who are like from Romania or somewhere that are supposedly making them here in the USA, but they won't answer their emails. They won't answer their phone good. I don't know if they're trying to actually sell product or not. And they keep spamming every single Facebook group that I'm a part of. But then when you try to actually get in contact with them, it just doesn't seem they're interested in communicating. It's really weird. So I don't know what's going on with them. There is a Captar lift, or however you pronounce that, over in Europe. They're supposed to be really good. I've never seen one in person. The shipping to get them over here is quite expensive. There is a Canadian model, which I have, and a couple other people have as well. Some of the guys are loving the units. I think they could be really good, but mine has just not performed well for me. After a couple of years of use, the battery won't hold a charge at all. And so it's kind of disappointing in that regard. So I really need to email them and see what's up uh, because I haven't used it all that much. And in like 2 years of use, of very, very light use, it won't hold a charge more than like 8 minutes of use at the most. So that's just not very helpful. So it's a little disappointing. Hopefully we'll see some more innovation there because when it works good and you have a flat bee yard, oh man, it's fantastic. You just, especially for picking supers up, you just go to a colony you're wanting to check the brood chamber, pick up the honey supers, set them down on a lid. Now you're right there to the brood chamber. You didn't pick up a single box. You can pick up 4 to 5 mediums with that thing, no problem. Set them down on the lid, get to your brood chamber. Okay, everything's looking good. No swarming. Yay, yay. Throw it back together, pick it up, drop it right on top. Boom. No lifting. But it takes a flat bee yard and it takes a lift that will keep its charge. And that company is called Bee Breeding Center, and it's up in Canada. So I think it's a pretty nice machine. Just the battery, and it may just be me, but I'm definitely having issues with my battery. So Greg Smith has a question. Will there be a forklift available for loading pallets into trucks? It was a challenge getting large purchases out the back doors last year. So there was a forklift last year. The problem is there was some miscommunication last year. And so some of the vendors were not using it when they could have been. So we are going to have more signage. We are educating the vendors better on our end. I think some of it was our fault. And we didn't know that they didn't know. And so we're going to make sure that they do know so that whenever you, let's say, get a pallet of boxes or you get a pallet of whatever, pollen sub, that they'll be able to go straight to the forklift. You can go into product storage. They'll pick it up, drop it onto your flatbed or your trailer or whatever you have, and you'll be good to go. So yes, there will be a forklift available.
They'll put it right into your Prius. The whole pallet right into the Prius.
We are not responsible for any damages that may or likely will happen to your Prius in the process of loading this, just all that stuff. Are you going to have cotton candy to sell at the conference? So that was a husband-wife team that brought that. I can't remember their name. They did give me a container of it, and I was so disappointed because my kids got a hold of it and they just destroyed it so quickly. They enjoyed it. They thought it was the best cotton candy in the world. But that's what happens when you're a parent. The kids just suck the life right out of you and all the food too. And so I hope that they're coming back this year. I don't know if they will or not. I don't know how they even did that, but that would be really cool if they had cotton candy there. That would be amazing. I'm sure it'd be quite expensive to have it in large quantities. So Red Creek Honey has a question. Oh, who's going to have pollen patties? Sorry, Chris.
We're just going to keep going back and forth. Okay, I'll go with your pollen patties. There we go.
So global patties, we always do a semi-load buy at the expo. And so that's fantastic because these are loaded. They have the Apis Biologics product. They have pollen in them. It's a great patty, and you're going to be able to get them for like, I can't remember what the prices were last year, but I'm wanting to say it was around $2.10 a pound for these crazy good pollen patties. If you order them online, you're probably looking at $4+ a pound. So they're going to be like basically half price there. So we're going to have their pollen patties. Obviously, we're going to have dry sub as well. Ultra B, AP23 from Dadent, and other companies will have discounted subs. So a lot of the deals haven't even launched yet. We haven't opened up the bulk order for the global patties, but last year we did a whole semi-load of pollen patties. And it's a great thing. And global, I want to say thanks to them because they really help us out on the pricing to where they also sponsor the muffins and the cookies. So between them and the Apis Biologics product, the rocket fuel, they work together with that order to sponsor the all the free muffins and cookies and stuff that we have there. Is because of Global and Apis Biologics, and Rossman and Copper Canyon make the coffee happen. So we really appreciate those companies getting creative and working with us so that you guys can have unlimited coffee, tea, this year hot chocolate, muffins, cookies, all that kind of stuff. So those guys are legends at the Bee Expo, and we will have that information on how to get those bulk orders on the website and available, but probably not until November on the patties. It's pretty, probably late November, to be honest. So next question, Chris, I believe there's one from, yes, Red Creek Honey Company. How should you wait to mop up with OA VAP after an apivar treatment in Ohio? Okay, that's great. So if you're looking at your bees and they look healthy after the apivar treatment, and you feel like that's really got them good, and the bees just are doing everything that you'd like to see, good population, good clean looking brood, no more issues. And if you have sticky boards that you can put underneath the hives, if you don't, that's fine. But if you know that those bees are in a pretty good spot, just wait till probably late November, early December in Ohio, maybe in mid-November. You're broodless. Probably depends on if you're far north or south, and then mop them up. Just if possible, do it on a 50 plus degree day. We want these bees not tightly clustered, and I prefer 4 grams at a time. So if it's a double deep, at least 4 grams. And I go ahead and take a wet cloth and I seal the entrance up. I just basically jet it in there, and then once it's finished, I've got almost all of it blocked off already, and then I just put that cloth in there, pack it in, and I'll do all the rest of the bees. And whenever I'm done, then I open it up. If it's a really hot day, of course, I mean, you got to take it out quick. But if it's November, you're not going to have that issue. But that really helps. And then come back again, and it can be just a few days later, a week later would be great, and do it again, even if the bees look really healthy. Because what we're trying to do here, let's say after the apivar, you go into winter with 80 mites, but you have a big population of bees, it's not going to really affect them. But if you just don't do that treatment, we're going to go from 80 to 60 on the first brood cycle of the year to 160. And then we're going to go to 320, 640, 1200. And so what we'd like to do with this oxalic acid vapor is start our first brooding cycle with like 5 or 10 mites. That's what we'd really like to do. It really makes a difference, and it's cheap. So that's my recommendation on that.
All right, so we have a couple questions here. Here's Perry's question here. Perry is from West Arkansas.
Arkansas. Well, congratulations against your win against Tennessee if you're into college football. And as far as how many times to treat with oxalic acid vapor, it is a very gentle treatment when there's on the bees. And also, it doesn't last long in the hive. It degrades very quickly. Some research is showing that it starts degrading on the bee's exoskeleton in under 20 minutes, which really kind of makes sense because it's such a flash treatment. If you take 10 colonies that have decent mite loads and you do 5 rounds in 21 days, and you do a alcohol wash beforehand and afterwards, you'll find out of 5 rounds, you're not even going to average a 60% kill typically. So it's a flash treatment. You just miss so many mites with it, and that's why I really like oxalic acid vapor, but it is an additional tool to another good treatment regimen. It doesn't have a long period of kill. So if you're wanting to crush a high population of mites, it's going to take many, many rounds. I mean, a high population could take 9 to 11, 12 rounds. But if we're talking a low population of mites, or if they've already been treated and you're just cleaning up, a few rounds might be enough. So this is a problem that we've had in the past, and I think some people are still struggling with this, is that oxalic acid is not a cure-all. The vapor does not kill for a very long period. And when you're looking at the sticky board underneath, you're like, well, it's still killing mites for 3 or 4 days out. That doesn't mean it's still killing new mites. Let's say it drops 200 mites over a 4-day period. It'll be high for the first couple of days and it'll gradually go down. You've killed 200 mites. Does that mean that you killed 200 mites over that whole period, from different hatchings of emerging brood and more mites emerging with the brood? It could be that was the 200 mites that were exposed during the treatment, and some of them got damaged more than others, and it just took some of the mites longer to perish and fall onto the sticky board than the ones that got hit harder with the oxalic acid. And I believe personally that's what we're seeing, because that's the only thing that makes sense. And there's a lot of things we just don't understand, because Samuel Ramsey, in one of his talks recently, mentioned that Varroa mites spend several days outside of the cell, and it could be a few days, up to 12 or more days. And so if they were all staying out, this is kind of my thoughts here, and I'm not saying I have an answer because I don't. But let's say on average, the mites were staying outside of the brood for 7 days on average. And we do 3 rounds, 1 week apart. Boom, boom, boom. We should get a pretty good kill out of that, but we don't. No university has gotten, no researcher has gotten good kill doing that. I've not gotten good kill doing that. Randy Oliver hasn't. Nobody has. So either one, the mites are going back into the cell faster than what we think, or 2, oxalic acid is not killing at a high of a rate as we think. One of these things is true. So that's the problem with a lot of this information. Sometimes we think we know what we're talking about and we don't. I don't always know what I'm talking about. Ask my wife. The list is probably so long, we'd be here till next week. So just keep that in mind with all of these treatments. All the successful beekeepers I know really plan on having a multi-pronged approach. So use that oxalic acid wand to help, but I highly recommend that you know thy mite loads and know what works for you and dial this in for yourself, because in Florida, you better be treating several times a year and getting good drops, or you're in big trouble. And maybe you can get away with 2 treatments in Wisconsin. YouTubers are only semi-useful. And so figure out what works for you, because I know once you do, you're going to be super successful. You're going to have too many bees, and it's going to be a problem for you. So thanks for the question, Perry. Got on my soapbox. Mites is a big one because it holds so many people back from being profitable, successful, and they get out of beekeeping because it gets them wash, wash, wash. That's probably what your mama was telling you, Jake, all the time as a kid. And honestly, she should probably still be saying that. Wash, wash, wash.
I didn't know if you wanted to give away any. Oh, hold on. He re-asked that question. I'll get that here. This will be a lot quicker. I didn't know if you wanted to address this yet or not.
Will Gray be there again this year? He did such an photo booth.
I think he was the young man who was working the photo booth for, I believe that was his dad.
Okay. I haven't heard anything from them. That doesn't mean that they won't be there. Historically, they're usually kind of slow to get it. They got a couple businesses going, so I don't know. I'm not 100% sure yet. I hope so. They always do a great job.
Okay, here's the question from Philip. He re-asked it.
I'm in Ohio. I currently have 20 hives. What is the best way to build my apiary to get where I can earn $50K a year? I do not want to travel. How many colonies are needed? Love your videos. Thanks, Philip. Appreciate that. Good question. It's a hard one. And I always like hearing that people are wanting to be productive with bees. It doesn't mean everyone has to be trying to make a full-time living off of them. But to be successful with bees at a high level like this, that means you have to be really taking care of your bees really good. There's this misconception that if you're a professional beekeeper in any form or fashion, that you must be doing something evil, doing something wrong to the bees in order to get that profit. The opposite is true. If you're going to be successful with bees, you better be able to have really healthy bees and do a really good job. And then when they get like that, you got to keep them from swarming to a great extent. So my recommendation, I don't know what your market is. That really is going to affect how many hives that you have to have, because $50,000 a year, I'm thinking that net profit. That's what you get to keep. We got to talk about taxes here to a degree, and also expenses. I'm looking at like a 200 colony operation. And this is not getting the barrel prices that the commercials are getting. This is getting some premium prices. This is getting some more bulk prices. Like you're doing some barrels at maybe like $4.50 a pound or something, $4 a pound. And we're also selling into some stores where we're getting maybe the premium prices, like $10 a pound or more, and maybe doing some wholesaling, which is what I do. I do wholesaling at $6 a pound, but I don't have to pay sales tax on that. So, and it's great because I have $1,200 of honey to deliver Monday to a couple stores, and I bottle it up, slap labels on it. I show up, they give me the money, I drop it off, I walk away. And that's good because I talk so much. And if I sell that honey individually, I'm going to make no money at all because I'll talk too much about bees. So 200 colonies run extremely well should make you that money right there. But you cannot, you got to be able to get some of these premium prices, and you got to build nukes into that as well. I think Ohio's a great place for selling nukes. It's a good central location. In my opinion, to sell to the neighboring states and go up to, guys from Wisconsin, Illinois, some guys around you. 200 hives. If you could sell 200 nucleus colonies, and let's do a little bit of math here. So down here, it's 195. I guarantee you up there, it's probably on average closer to $200 for a nuke, maybe more. But let's just say 195. And we're going to times that by 200 nucleus colonies, because nukes are a lot more reliable. So that's $39,000 right there out of the gate. And we're going to want to do that early, one, to prevent swarming, but also to guarantee some income there, because the honey flows are iffy. So we're going to have strong bees. We're going to have big clusters going into the winter. And when you have extremely good clusters, we're talking good 8-frame clusters coming out of winter, 7-frame clusters, the lowest. They build up so fast, you got to pull them back or they're going to swarm on you. And that's where you make these nucleus colonies. And you can purchase queens. You don't have to raise your own. But out of that $39,000, you're going to have boxes, you're going to have queens, you're going to have various expenses there. And then you're going to have taxes and all that kind of stuff. So let's say after all of that's taken out of there, you're going to walk away with around, let's just say $18,000 that you're going to get to keep out of that. So that's 18 out of the 50. And now we are going to do our honey production, and making those nukes is going to slow our early honey production a little bit, but it's going to keep them from swarming. And honestly, I think it evens out in the end. You can manage more colonies because they're less swarmy. So I feel like because of the increase in the colonies you can manage as well, you're going to benefit. So if we're doing 200 colonies and we're averaging, it's over a 10-year period. If you're managing colonies well up in Ohio and most areas, I would think that you could do 80 pounds, but these are great colonies and you're going to have drawn comb for them. So we're looking at 16,000 pounds of honey here, and your times that, let's say an average of $6 a pound between high sales and low sales, that's $96,000. And oh, by the way, we are going to be selling some beeswax onto the side. We're going to do some value added stuff like that. And when the flow's over, we're probably going to split these in half. And then we are going to one, hedge against losses this way, because if you have 200 colonies, you're only going to have that for a little while. You are going to lose, in my experience, 30% of your bees, even if you're really dialed in throughout the season due to queenlessness, whatever it is. And so expect 30% losses once you're dialed in, and maybe more than that. So we want to split these 200 in half, buy some queens again, draw some combs, and out of those extra colonies, we are going to sell some of those off, and we're going to keep some of them as our insurance colonies. So that's personally how I would do that. And off of those numbers, especially if you are creative and able to get the premium prices for honey and wax, you can do the $50,000 off of 200 hives. But it's got to be a combination of high level management, staying on time, and also being able to market all of that honey and everything, and get those premium dollars. 200 hives is what I would say. And some people could do it with a little less. Some people will need a few more hives. So, Chris, we're going to go 10 more minutes and hit the 2-hour mark. So,
Okay. Sounds good.
Homer, thank you so much for being a homer for our channel. Is that correct, Chris? I'm trying to be hip here, and I'm not. I was homeschooled. So, is that something people still say? Or is that kind of like an old term now? You're not helpful, Chris. So I had a hopelessly queenless hive, so I merged them together with newspaper. What can you do when you have to place the honey super back on? Lots of fighting, but at the end of the day, girls chilled. So I merge them with newspaper all the time, especially in summer. It helps so much. So when you have to put the honey super back on, you're getting some fighting and whatnot. Some of that just happens, and the older bees are the ones that typically die in this scenario. But if they're hopelessly queenless, they're going to die anyways. A lot of times, I'll shake the bees into a new location before I combine them back. So let's say I have this queenless colony here. I'm going to shake all of those bees into an empty space somewhere away, and then I'm going to smoke them. So only the young bees stay. The old forager bees go back to the original location that's no longer there. And then I'm going to take whatever's left with those combs and all those young bees, and then I'm going to combine that. And that prevents some of the fighting, but those bees are going to die. And it's unfortunate, but just bees die, especially in these tough situations in summer. It's a tough, bitter pill for many new beekeepers and non-beekeepers to swallow, that the reality of beekeeping is bees are going to die, and lots of them. And they do it to themselves a lot of times. A lot of beekeepers take it. I see them on Facebook every day struggling with, please, be gentle with me. Some people aren't used to this loss. I started losing chickens as a kid, and crops and various things. It's just part of it. But these bees are going to die, especially the old bees. They just don't have any use, especially in summertime, and they just won't get along. Those old codgers, at a certain point, they just get tired of all the craziness of the world, and they just won't take it anymore. Sound familiar? So anyways, that's how we deal with it. I did something very similar. The old bees did fight. There was probably about 200 or 300 bees that died when I combined them. I checked it after about 3 weeks. It's a great looking hive now, and the majority of the bees survived, and ultimately things look good. So that's what you had to do, Homer. Appreciate you supporting us. Sounds like you're doing some good beekeeping over there. So Drew Jober, 81 pounds, honey average in 28 hives in Western New York. That's excellent. I really feel like in most places in the US, if you have prime colonies in an average year, you can get 80 pounds. There are some places you can do well beyond that. And in Tennessee, in a great year, I can average 120 or more pounds. That's not every year. But what's going to happen is if you're really dialed in and you have the assets you need, drawn comb, you have the strong bees, you're going to have years where you're down in the 60-pound range. You're going to have years where you're in the 120-pound range, and it's going to vary for you. And that's why I really recommend that you sell nucleus colonies, because in poorer years, you can still sell nukes pretty good. And selling bees is great because not only does it provide you an additional a little bit of stability and income, but also you're getting rid of some of your older combs. And it's not like they're nasty or anything. If you're selling nukes every year, you're probably keeping your brood combs under 4 years old or very close to that, which is good for you. And it's also good for your customers because they're probably on average getting combs between the new ones and the old ones, probably about a 2-year-old comb at the oldest, which is a very young comb and good for the new beekeeper. Guys, there's several of you cutting out of here. Appreciate you for coming in. We're going to go for about 6 more minutes, hit that 2 o'clock, 2-hour long live chat. Let's get to some more questions, Chris, really quick, and go Oregon Ducks. I mean, Buckeyes. Yeah. How do you give guidance to new beekeepers who haven't treated yet? Is there a go-to late season product better to set them up for next year? There's once the damage is done and the viruses have taken over, Nick, it's over. Bees grow so well when things are right. When things are not right, they go downhill so rapidly. And this is such a steep learning curve for anyone that gets into beekeeping, because if you're not diligent, and especially if you don't know what to do, and you wait a couple weeks, or it's just too late, and you can't you can't teach these things typically. A great mentor can sometimes help them get through it in the first year or two. We have a gentleman here locally. He has a great mentor, and I've helped a little bit on the side. I'm not the main mentor. I'm not bragging on myself, but he's had access to mite washes the first year. Treat it this time. This is what works here in Tennessee. And he made good honey in his second year. Got his bees through winter. He did lose some hives to swarming he didn't want to lose, but he's actually seen some rewards in his second year. And that's what I really want to see. It's hard when you lose all of your bees the first year. And that was pretty much me. Unfortunately, these things are just part of the process. It's more common that people struggle in the first year or two. And it's our responsibility as the industry to do our best to provide this information and to not be bullish about it. But also, when someone says something that's absolute horseradish, to stand up and say, hey, no, that's not correct. And we don't have to be mean about it. But I'm tired of this whole mentality that everything goes in beekeeping. It just does not. And that mentality is hurting beekeepers, especially the new ones. And we're only retaining about 10% of the new beekeepers over a 3-year period, maybe a little bit higher than that. Just imagine if we could retain double that, 18, 22%. All of a sudden, we have more money in the industry. That helps us get more products. That helps the bee companies out. That helps everybody out. Some people don't want people in the industry. I think it's a short-sighted viewpoint. Our industry needs more people in it. So that's just another soapbox issue there. Clancy's got a question. Getting ready to start this bee journey, retiring from a 30-year career in the fire department. Hopefully first hive this spring or next. Can you recommend a bee supply near Philadelphia? Man, I know Dayton has a Pennsylvania branch. Honestly, it's probably the best one that I'm aware of. There's a good one in Florida too. There's probably other good companies in Pennsylvania. That's probably my weakest location, is the New England area. I know more about the Western stuff than I do about the New England side of things, and things over there in the East, Northeast. I know Dayton is, Jim Wilson is over there. They do a great job. As far as good bees, a lot of the big commercial companies, they get them from commercial package suppliers. They don't do them themselves. So honestly, there's some good people over there in the Pennsylvania area. I believe Steve Rapaski is over there, and others. Pennsylvania, I don't know a lot of stuff there. Maybe there's some people that can answer some stuff in the comments on that. And good luck getting into your journey. Congratulations on your retirement. And the fire department people should be perfect for beekeeping. Used to pulling things off of limbs and maybe rescuing cats, but this time it's bees. Kalamazoo, thanks for giving up 2 hours to chat. No problem, Kathy. We will see you in the next chat, of course. Can't wait to the expo. Thanks, Dave Lapp. It is going to be the best one yet. Thank you very much. Let's go for one more question, Chris. We got one, a cool one.
No, we are caught up.
We are caught up. So, guys, I'm going to do a quick recap on tonight's talk real quick, and then we're going to let you go. So the Bee Expo, we got all kinds of stuff coming out. Always check the website, because we have the speaker schedules coming out soon. We have our silent auction. If you want to, please sign up for that. That really helps our honey show become incredible. It more than anything helps sponsor our youth program. We want researchers to be there. If there are researchers in Pennsylvania, if they're at Cornell, if they are in Texas, Florida, wherever, if you have some researcher buddies or an organization you want to see there, let them know. We have free booth spaces for these researchers and their university to be there and network with us at the Bee Expo. We also are going to have bulk buys in the future. We're going to have workshop announcements, all kinds of stuff. Thanks to all of our members. Lots more information on the way. On the website, we have a section called Hotel and Travel. There are our list of hotels that will work with us on discounts for you guys. The Crown Plaza has a shuttle that goes back and forth that gets you in free and takes you back to the hotel. We've hired this guy. He is awesome. I keep bees on his property. It's one of my best bee yards, but there are chiggers like you would not believe there. It is a massacre every time I go in there. It is. I must have gotten 400 chiggers in that yard this year. It's been an absolute nightmare. Bees love it though. So do the chiggers. We're going to have so much more information in the future. Whew. God bless y'all. Happy beekeeping. We'll see you in the next video.